Hello, everybody. Welcome to the course of English literary texts. And this is level 2 because you have already done previously level 1. So the course is called English Literary Texts Level 2 and the course code is 1603 and my name is Shireen Abu Naga. Now, let's have a very short introduction to the course, what this course is going to do, and why it is important for you. Okay, here we are. Now, in order to be able to translate a literary text, the translator should first learn what it is, because we know that the first step that we must do before starting the actual translation is to understand the text. So we need to understand literary texts. And we cannot obtain this knowledge without having a direct contact with various different texts and interacting with them. Now, we know that all literary texts are expressive because I think you have done that before in the science of translation. Literary texts are expressive, and this is what Peter Newmark has said about literary texts, and this requires a semantic approach, ترجمة دلالية. So, okay, we agree that all literary texts are expressive texts, نصوص تعبيرية. However, they are not all the same. Each genre has its own characteristics. And in this course, you will be introduced to several kinds of literary texts, mainly verse, what we call poetry, and prose. The most important thing is that we need to learn how to enjoy the varieties of style. Each text and each author has their own style. We need to enjoy the language, the use of language, manipulated and employed by those authors to produce different effects. So this is a very general introduction about the course, and we are going to do several kinds of literary texts. Now let's begin with the thing that you have done perhaps in level 1 before, and this is poetry. We can do a poem together today, of course not all of it, part of it, and it's there in your book. Okay, now it is an ode, intimations of immortality from recollections of early childhood by William Wordsworth. The title is long, as you can see, and this is the full title of the poem, yet usually readers and critics refer to this poem by the name of Intimations of Immortality. Now, this is William Wordsworth. I just thought that I might give you a feel of, the author. Okay. Who is William Wordsworth? William Wordsworth was born in 1770, died 1850. So you can see he was born in the last quarter of the 18th century, and he died mid-19th century. The importance of William Wordsworth is that he's always regarded as the father of English Romanticism. Romanticism, of course, was a big movement that followed neoclassicism. Now, Wordsworth is often referred to as the poet of nature because most of his verse deals with natural description of the landscape. And it's full of a call to go back to natura naturata. This is the Latin word, which means created nature, in order to feel the presence of creative nature. So he was calling for a rebonding with nature so that we can feel the glory and the sacredness of nature. And this bonding between created nature and creative nature uh, is what he equated with the spirit of God. So, of course, that's expected because this call to go back to nature followed the Industrial Revolution. And this was one of the main ideas of Romanticism. What we need to know is that Wordsworth is regarded as the father of English Romanticism, and he is known as the poet of nature. What is the context of the poem? We need to, any text must have a specific context. سياق. What is the context? Now, this ode, and we will define the ode later in detail. Ode is the poetic form of the poem. The ode is, anyway, a classical form that dates to the Greco-Roman tradition, the tradition of the Greeks and the Romans. Now, this ode, this poem, was the result of a spiritual crisis, أزمة روحية. What is this crisis exactly? Now, at the age of 32, Wordsworth felt that his poetic inspiration was fading, waning, vanishing, disappearing. He felt he was no longer able to perceive, to feel the glory, the light he used to see in everything around him. It's as if he lost that feeling of the glory. And he was afraid lest his vision be dimmed. He was very worried. He thought that his poetic vision had vanished. So he wrote the first 4 stanzas of this ode in 1802 and left them and started a serious journey to get back his glory, trying to remember the sources of that glory in childhood. Once he finished the shorter version of the prelude, this is a very long poem, in 1805, he felt confident enough to go back to his poetic career, and so he went back to the 4 stanzas that were written in 1802 and managed in 1806 to complete the poem. Well, actually, what we're doing in this lecture is only the first 4 stanzas. This is a very long poem. It consists of 11 stanzas, and we're just doing the first 4 stanzas. What is the poem about? What is the ode about? It is about the formative years of childhood, formative years, السنوات التكوينية, and how these formative years helped to make Wordsworth the man and poet he became, how he gained experience from those formative years. As we have just said, this poem was written between 1802 and 1804. It was published in 1806 and 1807. The poem sings of the mature narrator's heartbreaking realization that childhood's special relationship to nature and experience has been lost forever. In other words, in this poem, the one we are going to do, the narrator, the persona of the poem, is very much aware that he has lost his very special relation with nature that he used to have when he was a child. He can still see nature and enjoy it, but there is something very special that he lost. And he still even has the unconscious memory of this state of being when he was a child. And this for him remains the source of wisdom. He remembers, but he does not have the feeling. The 11 stanza poem, I told you, it consists of 11 stanzas. This poem is written in the style of the irregular Pindaric ode. Now, we have seen the term ode in the title. You see, ode, intimations of immortality. What is the meaning of ode? The ode is a poetic form. It is a poetic form. I'm sure you know there are poetic forms like ode, a lyric, a sonnet. So the ode is a poetic form. It is a ceremonious poem. Ceremonious come from the word ceremony. So what does it celebrate usually, the ode? It celebrates an occasion of public or private dignity in which personal emotion and general meditation are united. This is the definition of the ode. Okay. Now, the Greek word ode, which has been accepted in most modern European languages, meant back then in Greek a choric song, that is a song that is being sung by the chorus. And it was usually accompanied by a dance. That was during Greek times. Now, when we say Pindaric ode, so this means by or in the manner of Pindar. Who is Pindar? Pindar is a Greek professional poet who lived during the 5th century BC. So the form of this ode is the form that Pindar used. That's why we call it a Pindaric ode. So what is an ode? It is a poetic form, and it usually celebrates private, an occasion of public or private dignity. And here, of course, Wordsworth is celebrating the formative years of his childhood and lamenting the loss of the very special relationship with nature. That's why we say there are personal emotions and general meditations. Together, they form the ode. Let's look at the poem itself. On the left side, you can read epigraph and stanza 1. The epigraph is taken from a previous poem by William Wordsworth, and it's called My Heart Leaps Up. And he decided to take part of that poem and put it at the very beginning of this poem. The epigraph gives us a general idea about the philosophy of the poem. The child is father of the man, and I could wish my days to be bound each to each by natural piety. Child is father of the man. This is a paradox. This is a very strong paradox, and we don't understand what does he mean. What we have just said in the last 2 slides, that when he was a child, he used to have a very special relation with nature. And this is the source of wisdom in later years. But when he became an adult, he realized that he lost this relation. That's why he makes this wish. I could wish my days to be bound each to each by natural piety. You know that the translation of the word piety in Arabic is something like al-taqwa. So as if this nature, contemplating nature when he was a child, gave him a feeling of natural piety. Now, on this idea, the whole poem is built. That he lost that, he is no longer the child, now he is an adult. All that remains with him is the memory of this feeling, but not the feeling itself. And immediately stanza 1 begins with, there was a time when meadow, grove, and stream, the earth, and every common sight, to me did seem apparelled in celestial light, the glory and the freshness of a dream. So there was a time when all this nature and every common sight, and you see every common sight is highlighted, everything that was ordinary to me did seem apparelled, covered in celestial light, heavenly light, as if this scene used to make him feel the glory and the freshness of a dream. Now, the word glory is very important because it's going to be repeated throughout the poem. But now he does not have this feeling of the glory and the freshness of a dream, because the stanza begins with, there was a time. Okay, the second half of the stanza, while the first half talks about the past, the second half begins with the present. It is now as it has been of yore. Yore means the past. Turn wheresoever I may, by night or day, the things which I have seen, I now can see no more. So it is now as it has been of yore. It refers to nature, meadow, grove, stream, earth, every common sight. Now, nature remains as it is. It is now the same as it has been in the past. But where is the problem? Where does the problem lie? The problem lies in him, in the speaker. Turn wheresoever I may, by night or day, the things which I have seen in the past as a child, I now can see no more. So in the first stanza, the speaker begins by looking towards the past. He recalls, he remembers how there was a time when things were different. To him, the meadow, grove, and stream all seemed apparelled, dressed, covered in celestial light. Celestial means heavenly. There was something back then spiritually elevating and almost religious about the landscape, natural piety. Every common sight was not common. Every common sight actually was wondrous. Wondrous comes from the word wonder. The sense of wonder, إحساس الدهشة. And of course, the sense of wonder is always there with children because they are exploring the world. They see things for the first time. But when we grow up and we become adults, we are used to what we see. So nothing moves us. So this sense of wonder that he used to have as a child provided him with a feeling of glory and freshness of a dream. In the middle of this stanza, he reminds the reader that everything is not as it was. The world is not as glorious as it used to be. Things are not as they were in the past. Well, actually, everything is the same, but the fault lies in the speaker. He has tried to seek out and find the same emotional experiences he had as a child, but has been unable. The thing that he used to see when he was a child, he can now see no more. Now, let's move to stanza 2. Stanza 2 from the Ode. The rainbow comes and goes, and lovely is the rose. The moon doth with delight look round her when the heavens are bare. Now he is contemplating the beauty of nature. The rainbow comes and goes, and lovely is the rose. Of course, notice the alliteration in rainbow and rose. The moon doth here means does. The moon doth with delight look round her. Her refers to the moon. Therefore, this is what we call a personification. The moon is personified as a woman. She looks around her when the heavens are bare. That is, the moon shines in the sky. Waters on a starry night are beautiful and fair. The sunshine is a glorious birth. Again, the repetition of the word glory, yet here it's used as an adjective, glorious. So this is actually a beautiful scene. Rainbow that is lovely as a rose. The moon is shining. Waters on a starry night. Beautiful, fair, delight, lovely. See how many adjectives that prove the beauty in the sunshine is a glorious birth, but yet I know wherever I go that there has passed away a glory from the earth. So all this beauty, and he can see this beauty, but he is sure that there has passed away a glory from the earth. No, of course, he doesn't mean earth has lost its glory. No, he lost this feeling of glory in the earth. So we have glorious and glory repeated in the same stanza. And also we have the word glory in stanza 1. So you notice that this second stanza is somehow short. It contains the speaker's present way of thinking about the world. All the beauty of nature has not left him. He can still see this beauty and experience it. But as the last 2 lines make clear, there is something crucial missing. There is something missing. Now, in these lines, Wordsworth alternates, moves between trimeter and tetrameter. We're talking here about the rhythm. And we will explain trimeter and tetrameter. Now, this changing pattern, moving between trimeter and tetrameter, reflects his inner state, his fluctuating perception of space and nature. He remembers himself as a child. He remembers the feeling. He can see the beauty of nature now, but he lost that feeling. We said that rainbow and rose, this is an example of alliteration, and we know alliteration when we have the first consonant sound of 2 words similar. Everything is beautiful. He can feel the glorious birth of the sun, but still, it's not the same. Now we have here the idea of essential loss. The speaker, now fully in the present, he's an adult. He acknowledges sun, moon, rose, but insists that something is missing. What is missing? The glory. What is trimeter and tetrameter? Trimeter is a poetic device that is defined as a meter or a line that consists of 3 iambic feet. Tri means 3 in Latin. And the trimeter is one of the 5 main types of iamb. The iamb has 5 main types. Trimeter is one of those. Of course, we always come across the iambic pentameter. Pentameter, this is the 5 feet. Trimeter is the 3 iambic feet, and we know that an iamb, the word iamb means a foot, and what is a foot? It's the unit. It contains 2 syllables. A foot contains 2 syllables. One unaccented, yani unstressed, followed by another syllable that is stressed. I want you to remember that trimeter consists of 3 iambic feet. Tetrameter, it's again a meter, a line that consists of four iambic feet. So tri means 3, tetra means 4. So Wordsworth in stanza 2 has been alternating between trimeter and tetrameter to reflect his fluctuating perception of nature and space. Let's look at some of the literary devices we have mentioned. We talked about alliteration in rainbow and rose. What is alliteration? Because sometimes you tend to think that alliteration is just two words beginning with the same letter. No, that's wrong. Alliteration is a literary device that reflects repetition in two or more, it could be more than two, nearby words of initial consonant sounds. We're not speaking here about letters, we're speaking about sounds. Alliteration does not refer to the repetition of consonant letters. Of course, consonant is the opposite of vowel. Alliteration is the repetition of the consonant sound at the beginning of words. The rainbow rose, the r sound. So not just any consonant letters, okay? The sound itself, how it sounds. So here we have the R sound. Personification, like for example, the moon doth with delight look round her, and I'm sure you have done personification before in level 1, but let's refresh our memory. Personification is a figure of speech. A figure of speech. So alliteration is a literary device. Personification is a figure of speech in which an idea or thing is given human attributes or feelings, or is being talked about as if it were human. Yani turning something abstract into a human, humanizing something. At the end of the day, personification is a common form of metaphor, because the word metaphor is very general, and under metaphor, we can have many things. One of these things is personification. We compare something. Here we are comparing the moon, for example, to a lady. The moon doth with delight look around her. So we are endowing, the poet is endowing nature with human characteristics. The moon is non-human, but here it's endowed with human characteristics. Of course, the use of personification allows writers to create life and motion within inanimate objects or animals, or even abstract ideas, actually. So personification here gives the feeling of vivid, alive nature. Let's look at stanza 3. Now, while the birds thus sing a joyous song, sing song. What kind of song? It's joyous, happy. Who is singing? The birds. And while the young lambs bound as to the tabours sound. Tabours is a small drum. طبلة صغيرة. To the extent that young lambs are jumping. To me alone. So everything is happy around him, apparently. He's singing, joy, happiness. To me alone, there came a thought of grief. A timely utterance gave that thought relief. And I again am strong. So while everything around him was very happy and joyful, a thought of grief struck his mind. Yet another sound, a timely utterance, relieved him, gave that thought relief, and I again am strong. The cataracts, the waterfalls, blow their trumpets from the steep. This is the sound of the waterfalls. No more shall grief of mine the season wrong. I shouldn't be grieving in this beautiful season. I hear the echoes through the mountains throng. The winds come to me from the fields of sleep, and all the earth is gay, so he can hear the echoes from mountains, صدى الصوت. The waterfalls, of course, waterfalls, they have a sound, and the winds, and all the earth is happy. Land and sea give themselves up to jollity. Jollity, again, something like happiness. So you see, joyous, we have joyous, we have gay, we have jollity. All these words emphasize the happy surrounding around him. Happy nature. Even land and sea give themselves up to jollity. And with the heart of May doth every beast keep holiday. May is usually in England the best month of the year. It's spring. So even beasts are on holiday. Thou child of joy. See, the word joy is again repeated. He's addressing a child here. Notice the adult who lost the feeling of his childhood is addressing a child here, and he calls him the child of joy. Shout round me, let me hear thy shouts, your shouts, thou happy shepherd boy. So the child of joy is a shepherd boy, a boy who is taking care of those lambs. Amid all this happy nature, everything is happy. To me alone, there came a thought of grief, but then he's resisting, he's trying to resist. And at the end of the stanza, he's asking the child to help him. Shout round me. Let me hear your shouts, you happy shepherd boy. What do we notice about this stanza? There is something that is repeated. While in stanza 1 and 2, we came across the word glory and glorious repeated several times. In stanza 3, notice the auditory images. Auditory means relates to the sense of hearing, sounds. It's full of sounds. The birds are singing. The young lambs are jumping to the drum's sound. But then a timely utterance made him strong again. The cataracts are blowing the trumpets from the steep, that is the sound of the waterfalls. I hear the echoes. And at the end, the line before the last, thou child of joy, shout round me. Let me hear your shouts, thou happy shepherd boy. So apparently it's those shouts, the shouts of the shepherd boy is shouting at his lambs. So apparently it is when he said a timely utterance gave that thought relief, that was the shouts of the shepherd boy. It seems so. We might tend to think so. Now the speaker mentions the cataracts, the waterfalls. They are loud. And again, they are personified. They are blowing their trumpet to emphasize the sound. And he decided that he's no longer going to feel sad. His grief, this thought of grief, has been wronging the season. It's wrong to feel so in the heart of May. He knows he should be celebrating, so he's going to try. Please pay attention to all the auditory images in this stanza, the images that relate to the sense of hearing, sounds. He also notices the gay or happy nature of the earth and the way the land and sea give themselves freely in joy, gives up to jollity. This, of course, while everything is so happy around him, there is here a juxtaposition, a contrast. His own heart is sad. Even beasts are able to keep holiday at this time of year. He really wants to feel as all creatures in nature feel, but there is something keeping him from fully committing himself to that. Something is missing. The glory is missing. Stanza 4 and our last stanza, but not the last stanza of the poem. Ye blessed creatures, ye here is an old form of you. You blessed creatures, I have heard the call you to each other make. I see the heavens laugh with you in your jubilee, in your happiness. Heavens is laughing with all natural creatures. My heart is at your festival. My head has its coronal. My heart is with you in your festival of joy. My head, my mind has its crown, the fullness of your bliss. I feel it all. Notice the repetition. Oh, evil day, if I were sullen while earth herself is adorning this sweet May morning, and the children are culling on every side in 1,000 valleys, far and wide, fresh flowers. The children are culling fresh flowers on every side in 1,000 valleys, far and wide. While the sun shines warm and the babe leaps up on his mother's arm, I hear with joy, I hear, I feel it all. So he feels, he hears, everything is so happy here. but. Again, the but that resembles the but of stanza 1. But there is a tree of many, one, a single field, which I have looked upon. Both of them speak of something that is gone. The pensée at my feet, pensée is a kind of flower, does the same tale repeat. Of course, this is a personification of the pensée who repeats the same thing. Whither is fled the visionary gleam? Where is it now, the glory and the dream? The glory and the freshness of dream that was in stanza 1. So he can feel everything, but he's wondering whither is fled the visionary gleam. Where is it now, the glory and the dream? Something is missing. This is the essential loss we are speaking about. So he's talking to the blessed creatures of the earth, as if to console or reassure himself. He says that he has heard the call. They shout to one another. Of course, they call each other. Nature communicates together. And the whole world and heavens participate in the joy they create. His heart is at your festival. He's fully in, ready to participate alongside this lovely nature around him. And in the 6th line, the speaker stutters. I hear. This is what we call stuttering, as if he's overcome with that same joy. And in lines 7 and 8, he regrets the possibility of ever feeling sad on such a beautiful day like this, sweet May morning, and the children are laughing and playing in the fields. There is life being born and bringing new joy to the earth. My heart is at your festival. My heart has its coronal. This is what we call anaphora. It's a rhetorical device. How does it look like? It's a repetition of a word or phrase at the beginning of successive sentences. Anaphora works as a literary device to allow writers to convey, emphasize, and reinforce meaning. So this is what Wordsworth is doing. My heart is at your festival. My head has its coronal. Coronal, we said, is a crown, tag. But then he admits at the end that something is missing. He lost the glory and the freshness of the dream that he expressed in stanza 1. There was a time when everything did seem apparelled in celestial light, the glory and the freshness of a dream. The things which I have seen, I now can see no more. This is the end of stanza 1. And he did the same in stanza 2. but yet I know wherever I go that there has passed away a glory from the earth. So he can feel everything, but this very special relation is lost. Stanza 3, he is trying, thou, and he's even asking the child of joy, the shepherd boy, for help. Shout round me, let me hear thy shouts, thou happy shepherd boy. Why? Because he knows he lost something. And that's why he is struck by a thought of grief. And then in stanza 4, he tries, he feels everything, he hears everything, but he knows very well whither is fled the visionary gleam, this very special relation he had with nature when he was a child. Where is it now? The glory and the dream. Now, when we read the first 4 stanzas, we understand more the epigram with which the poem begins. The child is father of the man, as if the child is wiser than the adult, because of this very special relation the child has with nature. And also, we can understand why Wordsworth makes this wish. I could wish my days to be bound each to each by natural piety. So this is just part of the poem. We did the first first four stanzas, and as I told you, the poem consists of 11 stanzas. But this gives us the feel of the poem, and we, throughout the 4 stanzas, we can enjoy all the imagery of nature and the feeling of Wordsworth. And you can see that the feeling of the poet, his feeling of grief, stands in contrast to the joyous, happy nature around him. Well, with this, I end the first lecture, and next time we are going to look at a new, different poem. Thank you very